So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome to another interview of the Shield Dude on a Couch. I'm your host, Hector. And today, I have a member of a new progressive metal band called Philosophobia. Uh, and they have a new album this Friday, The Constant Void. And I have Andreas. He's the guitar player and songwriter. So, first of all, Andreas, how are you today?
I'm really fine. Thank you very much. I'm super excited about the release on Friday. So a bit nervous, but yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So you guys formed in 2020. So you're almost like when they say super group because there's members from different bands. I don't know. Would you consider Philosophobia a super group?
Not at all. The history of Philosophobia goes back a little bit further because Alex, the drummer, and we recorded the first demos back in 2007. And we were not known musicians at that time. I just wrote the song, and Alex was a drummer that I knew, and he was a friend of mine, and we recorded some stuff in the studio. After that, I joined Paul Diano, ex-Iron Maiden singer, went on tour with him, and Alex joined Annihilator and went on tour with them. But at the time we formed the band, we recorded the first demos, none of us was known as a musician. So then, because we had obligations touring with the set artists, Philosophobia was on hold. And when the pandemic came, we just had a phone call, Alex and me, and we were like, "Oh, those were great songs. Should we record them right now? Because we can't tour right now because of the COVID pandemic. Now is the time to record them properly." And I called Dominic because Dominic already sang the vocals on the 2007 demos. And he said, "Yeah, sure, I'm in." So he recorded the vocals. Toby was also the keyboard player in 2007. Only Christopher, the bass player, he was not in the original lineup, but I sent him the stuff because I knew him. And he said, "Yeah, that's great stuff. I will be recording the bass for it." And so we did. And in 2020 and in 2022, the first record came out. And yeah, but the band was basically around since 2007.
Okay,
Just
and
didn't.
you
Pardon?
get more people on that album back on this second record, the sophomore record, The Constant Void. So the name of the band, I like the name of the band, especially the logo because you have it like twice. You have Philosophobia and then you have it backwards. Is there a story for that name?
There is a story for the name and for the logo. The story of the name is I just like the sound of it. I didn't know back in the days that there really was a phobia of people that were afraid of philosophy. And it's also like, in this medical psychological catalog, it's always described in numbers. And the Philosophobia is the F40.8. That's why there is a song on The Concert Void with that name, F40.8, because that's the medical code for Philosophobia. Yeah, but at first I only liked the sound of the name, and because it's a combination of two Greek words. Dominic liked it as well, so we said, yeah, that's a cool name. We do it. Regarding the logo, the first or debut album did not have an album name. It was a self-titled debut album. So we thought it would be a cool idea to have the band name, like you can read it, and then reversed again because the album is called the same. And we just stuck to that on the second album too, because we thought the logo looks quite cool like that. And it's not only the name written, it is kind of a logo. So
Yeah, and when you hear that name Philosophobia, it does sound like a prog metal band.
it does, yeah. It fits perfectly well, yeah.
It's funny that there's people that are afraid of philosophy.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe they're called politicians.
Maybe. that could be, yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting. So listening to the band, I could hear a lot of influence, like Dream Theater, like different type of bands. So I'm like, yeah, you have like a sound to them, and you have like some you had that song that's two parts. That's the part
Yeah.
one, and the part 2 and the part 1's a music video. So the evolution of the sound from your sophomore to this, how would you say you evolved sound-wise?
You mean regarding influences or what?
No. I'm meaning like from your first album to
Okay.
now that you've been together longer, like what changed musically?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I mean, the first record, like I told you, was basically written in 2007 already. So there were 18 years of, musical socialization, if you can call it like that. Of course, there were influences in those 18 years that maybe changed the musical style of my songwriting. Not consciously, but maybe in the back of my mind, I had some other, influences. And that you named Dream Theater, for example, as a prog metal band, you cannot be not influenced by Dream Theater. That's a fact. It's not about copying or something, but of course it's an influence. I have to admit that I'm not the biggest fan of Dream Theater, for example, because for me they are a little bit too much. The guitars play. John Petrucci on guitar plays like 100 notes in 10 seconds when there is James also singing. And I don't like that. I like to have a clean verse, a clean chorus, clean bridge. And then there can be an instrumental part where everybody can, show off like a little bit. I prefer that. So I'm more into bands like Pain of Salvation and Evergrey and stuff like that. But of course, the first prog metal band I really listened to was back in the days of Images and Words. It was Dream Theater, of course.
Okay. Yeah, but Pain of, that's a great band as well. So
yeah.
You're one of the main songwriters. So you write the music. Does Dominic handle everything lyric-wise?
No, I wrote all the music and all the lyrics. I did that on the debut album. And I also did it on the Constant Void. But I have to say that it was not planned like this. It just happened, when the recordings for the first album were still going on. Like I think the bass and the vocals were in the process of recording. I already started, recording ideas for the second album. And by the time the mixing and the mastering of the debut album was done, the pre-production of the Constant Void already was done. So it just happened like that. It wasn't planned that I write again all songs and all lyrics. Just it happened. And to be honest, with the next album, it is already written too. But this time we decided, okay, I wrote all the songs again, but let all other musicians have input too. So especially Alex and Sebastian, the new bass player, they have written some stuff for the third album as well.
Okay, so you're about to release album number 2, but album number 3 maybe next year.
I mean, that would be very. I think if you now that we have the pre-production done, we will go to the studio recording the drums and then all other instruments, vocals and stuff like that. And with the promotion, and I would say within the next 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Next year was a little bit too short.
Yeah, you're going to just release the Constant Void. So it's good that you write also the lyrics because I can talk to you about lyrics. So
yeah,
that's
sure.
So when you're writing, like, what's your process when you're writing a song? Like, how do you go about it? Because everyone has like a different like style of what they do. Like, what is Andreas' style when you're like, let me write lyrics, let me write a song? What's your process?
Well, musically, ideas come when I sit down and just play around on the guitar, and then there, for example, is a riff that starts it, and I think, oh, that's cool. So what could be the first verse sound like? And I just start to arrange things. Sometimes I have a vocal melody in my head, and I start writing songs around that melody. So that's just the natural way of songwriting. I'm not sitting down and say, now I have to write a ballad, or now I have to write a riff-driven heavy metal song. That's not how I work. I just sit down, play something, and like, oh, that's nice, and then it turns out to be a ballad, or it turns out to be a more metal song, or a complex progressive metal song, or something like that. That just happens. Lyrically, my approach to writing lyrics is more a view on the darker sides of life, because of course I have many happy days and happy times in my life, but that's not what I want to write about. I want to write things that are keeping me busy in my mind. That why are people behaving like this? What have we done regarding the constant void and the forgotten part 1 and part 2? What have we done to this planet? How can we stop that? What would people from outside think about the human race and stuff like that? So this is my approach to writing lyrics, and I know that Dominic, I know since, I don't know, 20 years now, and I know that he thinks alike. So whenever I write the lyrics, I know that he can transport them because he feels the same. If I would write a lyrics about swords and dragons and Manowar style, he would not be the one who feels comfortable singing them. But the way I write lyrics, I know that he feels comfortable and that he can address himself to that.
Yeah, no, that's a good thing, that you can have a singer that can interpret what you write and bring it to life, because the singing on this album is very good. Dominic does a great job, like very emotional record, and he has, he can hit those high notes, but also like do some not super aggressive, because this album doesn't have like super aggressive vocals. I think it's of a singing style, which I like in progressive metal. So, is the Constant Void would you say it's a concept record, or more themes? I know that the song part 1 and 2, obviously there's a story to that one, but the other songs on the record, is there a story, or is there just like themes?
Basically, every song stands for its own, but there is a red line, maybe kind of a concept going through the whole album, which is the view on the dark aspects of humankind, or of our society or whatever. So that may be a red line, but it's not a story per se, like Operation Mindcrime or Scenes from Memory or stuff like that. It's not a story.
Okay. Yeah, no, I felt like it was more like individual songs. Yeah. And I think one of my favorite songs, which is one of the power ballads, is Will You Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great power ballad. It has like that emotional. Can you tell me what the song is about?
It's always a little bit complicated to talk about your own lyrics, but, because I think it's more for the listener to decide what it's about. I heard some different opinions. One guy that I know, I showed him the song and he said, "Oh, May, that did you write a song about me? Because this is how I felt when he was together with a woman that already had a child. He was a stepfather, and then they split up." And he was like, "This song is about me because it exactly tells the story of, if I see that boy again in 20 years, will you remember me? Will you remember my face? You wrote that song about me." Okay. Inside I was like, "No, I didn't." But that's cool. It's your interpretation is pretty cool. It can be about a lost love. Honestly, my intention was, if my 80-year-old self would meet myself when I was 16, if he would remember how he was when he's 16, just like your old self seeing your young self, and like the lyrics go, don't rush through the chapters, let the story unfold, an advice from an old me to a younger me. That was my original intention, but everything else is interpretation, and that's cool.
Yeah, I interpret it like sometimes people want to, like, can't wait to grow up, and they're like just living the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like sometimes, like even when my kids tell me I can't wait to grow up, I'm like enjoy school. Being an adult sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the song is about also about creating memories. So cherish every moment that you go through. Create your own memories. We will actually release the video for Will You Remember Tomorrow, and it includes photographs of us as a band in the rehearsal room, backstage, behind the scenes, from a photo shooting, live scenes, because they're all our memories now. We as a band have already so many memories that the song also fits to that.
So, couchers who are seeing this interview, it's already Friday. It's out.
Okay. Okay. It came out yesterday.
Came out yesterday, but I knew that song. I'm like, that has to be a single. I'm like, I knew that song had that single potential.
Yeah, I mean, that was our plan. The first single, King of Fools, we wanted to have, that in-your-face metal stuff with the middle section, the instrumental progressive stuff with the unisono keyboard and guitar solo, all that defines us as a band. The second one, of course, was the Forgotten part one, because it has a certain kind of groove, and it's one part of the two-part songs, which guides you through the album. But we were absolutely sure the third one should be a slow one, because that's also Philosophobia. We were just not sure if it's Will You Remember or Underneath Grassroots, but in the end we decided for Will You Remember. And it's funny because I listened to an online review the other day, and the guy who did the review said that it has an intense Evergrey feeling, like a song that Evergrey wrote but they never released. Do you hear that too? Because I don't.
For the Will You Remember Me?
Yeah.
I don't know. The vocals for Evergrey are different from the vocals here, so
Yeah.
I it with Evergrey, but I don't listen to Evergrey that much. So
Okay, yeah, you should.
I've listened to them, but I just thought it was a good power, like progressive power ballad.
Yeah.
In its own right. Sometimes when reviewing is hard, because you're like, if I compare it to a band, and if you get it wrong, people in the comments are like, "Are you deaf?"
Yeah, absolutely.
Or they'll see like, "Oh yes, it's right." So sometimes I try to, like, when I'm trying to compare music, I'm like, I try to be careful to compare it to something because. But no, to me it's a great progressive metal song, power ballad, and I thought this should be a single. And guess what? I knew I have that would be a single. So I watched it. I'm sure the video has to be pretty cool. And I think King of Fools, it starts the record. There's an intro, and then you have that. It's a great album opener, because you want to open a progressive metal album like with that upbeat, like metal.
Yeah.
So I thought it was great, and the singing, the guitar playing, the keyboards. It has that progressive metal element that fans of like that style will enjoy. So let's talk.
Actually, the King of Fools was the first song that I wrote for the Concert Void, and although I had no other songs written, I was absolutely sure back then that this will be the first song on the album.
Well, that's a good thing that you wrote that first. So let's talk about the album Closer, the Forgotten Part 2, because that's a 20-minute epic album closer. So when people listen to this, this is what I feel about like long songs. They can be hit or they can be missed, because sometimes they feel very long. But this song, that's some of my gripes sometimes with Dream Theater. I'm like, do we really need 4 solos and like sometimes the extension? But this song, even though it's long, it doesn't. It has different elements. There's like a spoken word in a part, so it goes through like it doesn't feel like it's long to be long. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That's a really good compliment. Thank you very much, because that was our biggest fear. When we recorded it and we listened to it like 20, 40 times, listening to the mixes, everything is all right. Then sometimes you can get the feeling, oh, maybe we should have made this part a little bit shorter, or this part a little bit shorter. But in the end, I think it's cool like it is. There's not too much of it. There are different parts that keep it alive, and not too many repetitions. I think it turned out pretty well. I'm really, really happy with the result. And then also, it happened just naturally. I started writing it, started the piano intro, and at that time I thought maybe it turns out to be a piano ballad. And then it just happened that the next part came in. Then the staccato riffing came in. The spoken word passage I thought would be a cool idea. The piano part after the spoken word passage is actually the first contribution musically by Dominic, our singer, who's a fantastic piano player. He played and wrote the piano part. And So apart from that piano part, everything else is from me. But that was the first step that other band members included their ideas. Of course, very welcome.
And it's good, Andreas, because if someone doesn't like that part, you can blame Dominic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's also the main problem why I'm always nervous before a release. With the bands that I played in the past, they were like, we had the classic lineup, writing songs in the rehearsal room. So whenever the album came out and some critics said, "Ah, no, I don't like that," and you can, in the back of mind, you can also always say, "Okay, maybe they don't like the idea of the other four guys. It's not my ideas they don't like." But now that I wrote all the songs, I'm super nervous because I think if they don't like the record, they don't like me. They don't like my songwriting because every song is written by me, and that's a crazy and strange feeling sometimes. But the first reviews came in, and the debut album had really good reviews. So yeah, I'm a little bit more relaxed now.
Yeah, no, I'm sure the reviews for this one will be good because it's a great progressive metal album, and that last song, like I said, I like the different parts because sometimes with long songs you want a big payoff because that's some of my issues sometimes with doom metal where you have like that super long song and they're playing the same note for 15 minutes. I'm like, oh, I'm like,
Yeah,
yes, but not 15 minutes. So this song has so many changes, but it has changes like that doesn't, they flow into each other. They doesn't feel forced because, like, for example, the last Steven Wilson album that was supposed to be 2 songs, I didn't like the flow of that album. Like,
okay. Yeah.
I'm sure Steven Wilson doesn't give a shit about my review, but
I haven't listened to the Steven Wilson album. I have to admit, I'm not
yeah,
familiar with the songs.
yeah. So I have to be honest. But yeah, that closing song, it's a good. But sometimes there's bands that do the opposite, that they open with a long song because there's a band, the Genti Periphery, which
Yeah,
I remember. There was an album that they started like with a 15-minute album opener. I'm like that's kind of like a risk to open a
yeah, yeah,
super long song.
yeah. Absolutely. But did it work? Is it a good song?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
did work. It did work, but it was like it's like there's some bands like, for example, like, and there's a band that I love, but it doesn't progressive metal. Seven does that started
Yeah,
that album with a ballad, and I'm like, oh,
yeah,
that's to start like unexpected that you would start an album with a ballad, and I know some like sometimes there's albums that I love, but there's albums that I'm like, oh, maybe they should have placed this song somewhere different. But I think the song, like how you place the songs on this record, work because, like, for example, you have the ballad in the middle, like it has like ebbs and flows, like
yeah, yeah.
you put into the like the placing of the song.
Why we put it at the end? You mean?
Oh no. How much emphasis did you like when you're doing like the album, like the placing of the songs? How much thought did you go into that?
Well, I mean, it was very obvious that we put King of Fools in the first place, and I didn't want the Forgotten Part One and Part Two to be, shortly one after the other. So I thought, okay, have the Part One as the second or third song if you include the intro. And it was very obvious that the long song, the epic, has to be the very last song because it builds up at the end. It has this vocal sample from spoken by Rob Leland again, saying humanity has failed. That had to be the closing point. No, nothing else should come afterwards. So, yeah, and everything that happened in between was like just a mixture of, okay, we have a couple of fast songs now. Maybe now it's time for a ballad. The instrumental song should be in the middle. That was very clear from the beginning. As some other kind of musical color that we included. Yeah, that's basically how it happened.
Yeah,
But I wanted to say something else because you mentioned Seven Dust. The John Witherspoon is probably my favorite singer of all time. He
he's
has
a great.
such a great voice. It's amazing.
I saw them live when I lived in Florida, and to me, they're a very, I call them an underrated band.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's a band that people say like, oh, that's new metal. I'm like, they have, they even have they have a long song in one of their albums that,
Yeah.
they're really good. That's a really great singer. Hey,
Yeah.
maybe you can get him as a guest star.
Maybe. If he's into prog metal, maybe.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I want to show the artwork of the album, which is pretty cool artwork, and that's when I saw the artwork, I'm like, yeah, that's a great artwork. I wrote down it was done by Bjorn. I think it's Goddess. I don't know if the name.
Bjorn Goses, yeah.
Yeah, that's when I saw that artwork, I'm like, yeah, that's a great artwork. So tell me a little bit about, because I know he did the artwork for the first album. What did you give him direction of what you wanted for this?
I'm a graphic artist myself. I wouldn't call myself an artist because, I know how to work with certain, like Photoshop and stuff. And I do cover artworks for other bands as well. And I had some artwork prepared for the Constant Void that looked a little bit different, but had the same mood. But as with the first album, I didn't want to do the cover myself because, I did all the other stuff. And then I said, okay, now the artwork has to be 100% perfect. And when you do it yourself, sometimes you maybe are, satisfied too early. You're satisfied with 90% of what could be. And somebody oh, wait a second. Something happened here. My stand lost battery. So I have to do it like this now.
Don't worry.
Okay. So I sent that artwork that I had to Bjorn, and he said, yeah, that's pretty cool, and I like the mood and all the stuff, but I have some other idea. And he sent me a raw sketch of the three heads and the stuff coming, the color out of it. And I said, that's pretty cool. I would never have come up with that idea, but that's pretty amazing. So we started working on it, and it has the idea that I had a little bit more intense. The three heads are filled with all the colors that we know, which basically is all the information that we can get from media and from experiences and stuff like that. So we could, have good conversations. We could have a good time because we have all that colorful information. But what people are doing, and that shows the artwork, is that slimy brown gray stuff coming out of their eyes, noses, and mouth. They have all the information, but they just cannot filter it or something. There was very, during the time of the pandemic, when opinions of people regarding the pandemic and regarding COVID and vaccinations and everything, they were so far apart suddenly that a guy that you called your friend once, you thought he's not my friend anymore because he has a different opinion. And that was the cover artwork shows. They have so much in common with all the colors they have. But when they start speaking, it's just, slimy stuff coming out of their mouth. And that basically for me was the constant, or is the constant void. Once there was a gap in the opinions between people, and that gap has become, just a void. There's nothing people could talk about anymore that used to call them friends.
Yeah, and that's a very good point because, because like not everyone thinks the same, but that doesn't mean that you can't be friends with someone that doesn't think exactly like you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great artwork, and I think it really represents the music on hand. So this is going to be out this Friday, but it's Sensory Records, right?
Yeah, Sensory Records. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll put the link for people who want to pre-order. I'm sure it's going to be on vinyl and different formats for people that want to buy it. So are you guys playing some shows? I know that everyone's here in different places.
Yeah, we played a couple of festivals in the last 1.5 years, and we're still working on festival appearances and on tours, of course. But still, the most of the tours are still the ones that were postponed from the pandemic times. It's super hard to get a support slot on a tour, for example, with Pain of Salvation or Evergrey, because they already have promised other bands from back in the days to join them on tour. So that's really hard. It works a little bit easier with festivals these days. They're more open to this, but of course we're still working on a small tour or something like 10 or 14 days. Then some festival appearances. We were booked for a festival in south of France in October, but that whole festival is postponed to next year because they had some problems with finding the proper venue, because the venue that they now always had suddenly it's turned so expensive that it just didn't work anymore, and they couldn't find another venue. So that will be the next year. And some other festivals are in the pipeline. Nothing, no contracts were signed yet, but we're working on it. Yeah, and we hope that with all the reviews coming in from the Constant Void, it will be a little bit easier, because some of the promoters that we wrote to in the past, they were like, "Yeah, you brought out one album, and this musician and this musician. We don't want to have projects on our festivals. We need real bands." And now that we have the second album out, they see that we are a real band and not just a studio project. And we're playing live. We played festivals already. So yeah, we hope that there will be coming much more.
So you do realize that you have to pay that if that you'll have to play that 20-minute song live.
There is a chance that we will play that. Depends on how much time we have in general. Because if we have, like, as a support band for another band, we only have 40 minutes, maybe we don't play it.
That would be sad, yeah.
But if we have like 60 minutes there's no reason we shouldn't play it. So
it should sound amazing live. So Andreas, thank you, for joining me and talking about Philosophobia. So Couchers, if you like progressive metal, do not sleep on Philosophobia. The album is out this Friday, which I think is the 11th of July.
Yep, that's correct.
Right? Yeah. So don't sleep on it. If you like all those bands that we've been discussing, you will like this, especially if you like progressive metal with like super clean singing and not like harsh vocals. Like there's some great singing on this record, and yeah, and the concept and the themes on the record are pretty interesting. I'll put the link for people who want to follow you on the socials. Where are you most active on the socials?
Well, I have to admit that me personally, I'm most active on Facebook. I'm not a big Instagram guy, but the other guys in the band are forcing me right now to get into that. So I have to change it and go more to Instagram, because I know that Facebook is kind of dead these days. But yeah, so Instagram and Facebook would be the most updated things. We also have a homepage at Philosophobia.net, where I put all the tour dates and videos and stuff on it. But I think Facebook and Instagram would be the most actual on a daily basis.
Okay, so before I let you go, Andreas, anything that you like to say to the fans before we go?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It was a great time talking to you. Sometimes we have these interviews that could last for hours, and this is one of them. It was really fun. And to all the guys out there, I hope that you like The Constant Void. Maybe also listen to our debut album. It also has some great songs on it. And yeah, we hope to see you on tour somewhere and talk about a lot of things, because there's so much to talk about that does not include The Constant Void. I'm pretty sure we find some interesting topics to speak about.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, not everything about the album, but yeah, that's why we talked about different things. So again, yeah. Thank you for taking some time to chat with me. So Couchers, Philosophobia, The Constant Void, out July 11th. So it's out now. So go get it. So until next time, Couchers, this is Hector, the Chill Dude on a Couch, and I'll see you all right here on the couch. Thank you and goodbye.